I never thought I could be a cat person. And it's not like I'm playing the macho card, like, tough guys can't love cats. It's not that at all. That's not my vibe. The main reason is that I was always allergic to cats. That is until I got over it because I had to. Now, and the other reason why I wasn't a cat, I never thought I could be a cat person, is I didn't have anything against cats. I just always thought of them as kind of boring, kind of blah. I mean, like, how can you compare coming home to a dog, who is so excited to see you? It's like they jump all over you, they lick you, they run around in circles, they just burst with enthusiasm, versus a cat who, might, jump off the couch and walk toward the front door and kind of like look at you, maybe do like a 180 and go back. Like, that's the best you're going to get with a cat. At least that was my perception. But that all changed when I met my wife, Catherine, and her little tuxedo cat, Felix. So Catherine and I met, it was around 2003, so well over 20 years ago, on a blind date. And our first date, she didn't invite me into her apartment. I picked her up, we went out to dinner. But the second date, she invited me in to her apartment, and she said she was still getting ready. So she went into the bedroom and finished getting changed, and I just sat in the TV room. So Felix comes out, and it was very sweet. Walked up, kind of sauntered up to me and meowed, and she just looked like she wanted to interact. She wanted me to pet her, so I pet her. And then I felt like I was sort of connecting with her. And then, she slowly like rolled on her back, like she wanted me to rub her belly. So I put my hand on her belly, and then like in an instant, with all four paws, she like mauled my hand with her claws. It was like, and my hand was like bleeding. So I run to the bathroom. I closed the door because I didn't want Catherine to know what had happened. I didn't want to have her to feel bad. So I'm like rummaging through her closet, looking for like, disinfectant and gauze. So I kind of wrap up my hand. And meanwhile, Catherine's like, hey, is everything okay in there? It was like time was going by. And I think she thought I must have had like some kind of stomach issue or something. I couldn't get out of the bathroom. But I was like, oh yeah, I'm good. So when I came out, she immediately saw that my hand was bandaged. And she was like, did Felix get you? And I'm like, yeah, but no, it was not a big deal. It was my fault. And meanwhile, I'm thinking like, it was not my fault. It was her fault, that little brat. And I'm never going near her again. That was it. After that, Catherine and I dated, pretty regularly. And it wasn't very long before, it's safe to say she and I fell for each other like really fast. So things moved along really quickly. In fact, I think we were only dating 7 or 8 months before we got engaged. So it became clear to me that, we were going to be all together, Catherine and me and Felix, for the duration. So I knew I was going to have to kind of like, really get to like Felix and get to know her. But you know what? It wasn't hard. The more I was around her, she was great. What I realized is that some cats, like their bellies are super sensitive. And it's not that it hurts them. It's just like, it's almost like this overstimulation. And that's what happened with Felix. So I just would never touch her belly. But she never did that to me again, ever, like, maul me or anything. It was just this crazy sensitivity with her belly. And as I got to know her better, eventually when, Catherine and I got married, we were all living together, I grew to love Felix, truly. And also I started to see, why people love cats so much. I saw the advantages of cats. In some ways, there's a lot of things about cats that are advantages even over dogs. And I was a dog person. Like, number one, you don't have to take cats out, which, on those like, rainy days or those freezing cold days, you got to clean a litter box, but that's like once a day. You do that like on your own watch, like this winter, our driveway was a sheet of ice, and I had to take our dog Teddy out to pee, and I broke my ankle. So, that wouldn't happen with our cats. The other thing is, and this is another thing that's huge, which is you don't have to worry about your cats when you leave them for a day or 2 or even 3. You can go away for a couple days, and as long as you leave them plenty of food and have the litter box clean and you give them plenty of water, you can go. You don't have to worry about a sitter. Now, sometimes if we go for for a couple of days, we'd get a sitter just to check on the cat or cats. But that's a big advantage. The third thing is I realize that cats do have personalities. You know, they're unique, they're interesting, they're just more subtle than dogs. And last, and this is probably the biggest, is that you know, cats really are very affectionate. They can be extremely affectionate. You know, it's just that they show affection kind of on their own terms. Like you almost have to like earn it. You know, and that's okay. Like, you know, Felix, you know, after she kind of really got to know me, we warmed up to each other. Like when I would just lay in bed, she would jump up and just, she'd love to sit on my chest, and she put a little face near mine, and she was just so cute. So, you know, I grew to love her, and then, you know, the kids came, and we all loved Felix. She was just, she was our one pet. And I named her, I added her middle name, Marie, because I felt like Felix was a little too masculine. So we started calling her Felix Marie or Feely Marie. All was good until probably around, I don't know, it was 2016 or so. Felix, it was like overnight. She went from, and by this point she was probably, we figured around 20 years old. She went from being like super good health, like never having any health issues, to like immediate decline. You know, first I noticed she couldn't see, like her eyes were failing. So she would, you know, bump into things or very hesitant around, you know, furniture, or just when she walked, you could tell she couldn't see, and even had a hard time, you know, jumping up and down on things. You know, it started out as a vision problem, but also, you know, it was clear she was getting like really, again, it was like overnight arthritis where she couldn't even make it up and down the stairs or jump up on the bed or jump up on the couch. Also, she started just peeing on the floor, couldn't make it to the litter box. And all these things were happening at once. So, you know, I was determined to do whatever I had to do to like get her through. So, you know, we bought these wee wee pads. So we had a room that just was full of wee wee pads. And I would sit there with her, you know, so that, you know, she had company, and she would just pee in there. But eventually we got her these little diapers, and that was more like at nighttime. You know, I put the diapers on her, and, you know, she would pee. And so, and also at that point, like she needed help, like jumping up and down off the bed. So during that period, it was a few weeks where I was up all night with her, like changing diapers, cleaning her, bringing her up, putting her down on the floor, just watching her every second. And I didn't get a lot of sleep, but she didn't last long. I mean, at some point it was clear she was just suffering, you know, the arthritis and just the inability to see. Like she was just barely moving. So I talked to Catherine and the kids, and we knew that we had to euthanize her. Thankfully, I didn't even know they had these, but I found there are veterinarians that'll come to your house and euthanize your pet, which was really nice. So the day that we made the appointment, Catherine was at work, the kids were at school, so I met the veterinarian, and she kind of talked to me, and made sure that, we had fully decided that we were going to do this, and that it was necessary at this point, which it was. I mean, that was kind of a formality, and she gave Felix the shot, and then Felix went down, and I got to say, I was absolutely devastated. I mean, just heartbroken. I just wasn't expecting to feel like so crushed, like as bad or maybe even worse than when I had to put our childhood dog down, Dookie, years earlier. It was just, I was home by myself, and I remember just sobbing. I just couldn't, I just felt like I was like my heart was broken, saying goodbye to Felix. I just loved her so much. So that was very difficult. The one thing that got me through that horrible day, and knowing that, I wouldn't have Felix around for the rest of my life, was knowing that I someday would be reunited with Felix in the afterlife. In fact, I posted a video on this, and I'll put a link to that video here. And the video is called "All Dogs Do Go to Heaven," but I would extend that title to say "All Cats Go to Heaven Too," along with all of God's creatures. So here's the point in all this, and that is that I believe there is a God, and that God is the true embodiment of love, and that God understands that for people like me, and maybe for people like you, heaven wouldn't be heaven if our guys weren't there. Let me tell you my vision for what it will be like after I die and I enter heaven. I picture walking through like a beautiful green pasture surrounded by rolling hills. And up over one of the hills comes my dogs, Teddy and Dookie, leading the charge, heading toward me, so excited to see me. And then behind them is, Felix, kind of sauntering and, very, in a very aloof way, sashaying. But I'll know she's excited to see me. And then holding up the rear is going to be our guinea pig, Calvin, who I also love dearly. And then I'll know that I got my reward for living a good, godly life. I got a comment on the video that I mentioned about, that I posted about all dogs going to heaven. And the guy who commented said this. He said, "Dogs and pigs are low and depicted as extremely low," meaning in the Bible. And Yahweh, which means God, is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So, I didn't take offense by that comment. I don't judge him. I mean, this person who wrote this comment obviously takes the Bible very literally. Well, I don't. I mean, I don't believe every single word in the Bible is God's direct word. I believe that the messages in the Bible are God's word, but not every single word taken literally. For example, do I believe that a man named Noah built an ark and brought two of every single species of animal on earth onto the ark, including every species of bug, worm, lizard, lions, tigers, bears, poisonous spiders, snakes, porcupine? No, I don't believe that. But I believe that one of the messages of the story of Noah's Ark absolutely is God's word. And that is that every kind of animal on earth is loved by God. And if God ever did wipe out the entire earth, he would make sure that every type of animal survived, just like he did with human beings. And I do believe that is God's truth. So that's it for now. For more on this, please do hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you soon.